looking specifically at co-teaching, but we wanted to let you know that this is free and public, so please use it as you wish, and the website is in your information. But we do look at this and we do expect people to use it. State of Virginia has said that co-teaching is the same as primary responsibility when it comes to hours. And we always have then a big discussion about, doesn't this mean do I ever leave them alone? And so we have real good discussions about what does it mean to leave somebody alone, and how do we transition them in, and what is responsibility, and how do you work with somebody? And we can put it around within the context of co-teaching and those kinds of things along the way. Okay? So your little pink version is the short version that they get in their notebook, but then we show them where the long version is, and it's all in here along the way.
As Sandy mentioned, the co-teaching handbook and the website, it is also in your CD that's in the back of the book, so you can go to either source to read that in this complete version. The next part I want to talk about is assessment. And I will just briefly go over some of the slides that's in your book after the pink pages. And we call this teaching and learning in a professional community. We do have guidelines. We use our colleges and universities' conceptual frameworks. We use in-test standards. Our evaluation form is built upon, or one of the instruments it's built upon, is the in-test standards. We also use NCATE, TEAC, or CAPE now as it all is coming together. And also we have the standards for the National Board for Professional Teaching. Then we have state guidelines, state regs, local school guidelines, and then the feedback, which we think is most important from the clinical faculty that we have trained. And I'll reference that a little bit more when we actually look at the forms that we use. And then you see the different characteristics of assessment. It's compatible with the teaching learning process. It's reflective, it's formative, it's reliable. We clearly describe what we want the students to be successful at, and the different areas where we want the classroom teacher, clinical faculty teacher to evaluate their students. Many things we talk about, we always talk about flexibility. So our program does have, or each of our programs do have flexibility. We have multiple ways. It's not just one instrument in which we evaluate. At the end of the student teaching experience, we can say to anyone who questions this, these are the various instruments on which we used for the student teacher assessment. They have passed or they don't pass. They have done well, they have not done well. And we also heavily encourage our students to use technology. And that's dependent upon how much technology each of the school divisions may have and which classrooms they have. And it varies greatly with the 7 school divisions that we have in our area. Some have technology in every classroom in particular schools. Then they may choose another school in the district and just have spotty coverage with technology. So it really is very variable. In our assessment instrument, we have 5 categories. We assess their content knowledge, the preparation for instruction, instructional performance, reflection and evaluation by the student teacher, and what do they perceive their impact on student learning to be, and then the dispositions of professionalism. So if you look at the next slide, you can see how it's all broken down, and you can see the performance assessment. Again, as I've said, we've had multiple sources of evidence, and by the time our students finish we can clearly indicate whether or not that teacher or that student teacher can perform as a future teacher in the classroom. The documents, various documents that we have the observation form, which is, I'll go over in just a moment. We have a page for note-taking. We have a technique that we train our teachers in called focused scripting as one of the strategies for feedback to the student teacher. And we have the summative evaluation done at midterm or midpoint of the student teaching experience, and then again at the final. And the final is the one that is kept in their permanent records. And then we have a reference guide. But let's look at the form on the next page. Is called referenced ST8. Now this is the coding that James Madison uses in their student teaching. Each of us would have one with our logo, our name at the top of it. And the key thing to remember in all the assessment piece is that all of us use the same evaluation forms, the same setup. The teachers like that because whether they get a student teacher from Bridgewater or from EMU, JMU, or Mary Baldwin, they know it's the same evaluation form. And so they don't have to figure out what do they look for, what do they look for. It's all, they've been trained to know this. So under the content of knowledge, or knowledge content, you see 4 criteria. I'm not going to read all of these, but they are there. So we think by the time that we have an informative lesson observation. Now this ST8 is used when the college supervisor goes in and does a lesson observation. So they look at their content knowledge. What does the student teacher demonstrate? A1 through A4. Then we examine their preparation for instruction. And of course they would have to look at the lesson plans that they have done, whether they have formulated clear outcomes, whether they plan to assess the outcomes, things like that. The instructional performance, you notice, has the most criteria. We have 10 of these because we thought it, upon the advice of the classroom teachers, the clinical faculty themselves, they thought it was wise to have this part broken down into many different areas. And you see we ended up as did they use time effectively. We have safe environments in there, good learning environment, classroom management, technology, all of that is incorporated into that area. And then on the next page is the reflection and evaluation. One of the things that we ask our students to do, and it's on your CD, is we have a weekly progress report that we ask the student teachers and the teacher to complete. You'll see it when you look at your CD, but the part A, the student teacher fills that out first, and they reflect on what went well or did not go well during the previous week. Usually these are done at the end of the week, and they reflect back upon the week that just happened. And then the CT, the cooperating teacher, responds to whatever the student teacher mentioned in their part. And the CT also indicates these are things I would like for you to focus upon, to work on during the coming week. And then the third question on the progress report, weekly report, is for the student teacher to give some type of indication how they anticipate that they will meet the suggestions of the cooperating teacher for the following week. So that is incorporated in the D section. And also the D1, some of us, we all may have, is where we have the students to actually do a unit or documentation of student learning. We have a rubric, documents they collect, analysis of the results, that type of thing. And then the professionalism, these are the dispositions that we feel are not the only ones, but are critical to a student being professional. And then we'll have the suggestions down there. So this is the form that all of our teachers that have any of our student teachers and the college supervisors, we all use this particular form for a lesson observation. Then where this really gets nice is we can use the same content standards, the same criteria, and actually evaluate the student teacher. And if you look at the ST9, that is the profile, at Bridgewater we call it the summative evaluation. Again, same form, but just a little bit different stuff at the top. You can see what all just the informational data. If you look at A, the knowledge of content, if you look back at the previous form, you can see that A1 is one of the 4 areas in the lesson observation form. But now in the summative, and you can just follow all the way down through there, A1 on the I call them the 2-page or formative, A1, A2, A3, A4. Then we break it down on this midterm or midpoint of student teaching and final evaluation. 3, 2, and 1. So the classroom teacher and this college supervisor each do this. We may also ask the student teacher themselves to complete a self-evaluation at the midpoint of their student teaching. You know, how do I think I'm doing? And then the teacher and the supervisor and the student teacher get together, and everybody's forms come together and they discuss, are there major inconsistencies, or do we all see and rate about the same? The 1.5s and the 1.5 and the 2.5 is where we put that in there so that they're not as bad as a 1, which is really they have no idea of what's going on, or very little. But they're certainly not at a 2, which indicates that they're doing an okay job. So we give the opportunity for the 0.5 to happen. And then the 2.5 is the same thing. They're doing okay, but they're not at the outstanding level of a 3. So then the various people can choose a 2.5. Then the part that is not in your book, well, first you can just flip on through the 4 pages, and it's just the expanded version of what we did with the first form, that's ST8. The reference guides are also on your CD. They're also on the website. And these are broken down into content areas. It can be for elementary, it can be for English, for math, health and PE, whatever. But it's an expanded version of a reference guide for the teacher to help the teacher give more feedback, help them to make a better decision on what am I really looking for in this particular content if I'm looking at content knowledge. And it has a series of suggestions and criteria. Questions? Yes, ma'am. Correct.
Have you guys done an analysis of those responses to see where they fall out compared to where the cooperating teacher is evaluating them?
The question was, have we done any type of comparative study analysis of how the student teacher self-evaluates and how that corresponds to what the college supervisor and the cooperating teacher? We haven't at Bridgewater. We haven't done that. It might be interesting. So we kind of allow the 3 people involved to do that self-analysis themselves. but we've never collected data on that piece of it.